There we go. So once again, welcome everyone. And thank you for being here. Today we're going to be talking about Google Applied Digital Skills, not just what it is, but how to actually use it with your learners. I'm Mary-Kate Haverly, and today my goal is that you leave here today with something concrete you can try and not just an overview of the tool. That's something that we had talked about a couple weeks ago. So today we're going to try to stay practical and specific. And for anyone who is newer to working with us, just a quick note about who we are. ATDN, Digital ATDN, are funded through the Connecticut State Department of Education to support adult education professionals across the state. We provide training and resources and coaching and supporting you in implementation tools, just like applied digital skills. And this is the kind of work we're here for. So if you leave today with questions or hit a wall when you go to try this in your classroom, please reach out because, like I said, that's what we're here to do.
Mary Kate, share the screen.
Oh my goodness, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay. There you go. All good. You see it now? Okay, perfect. So here's what we're going to be covering today. By the end of our time together, you will understand how applied digital skills, or in this case, ADS, lessons are actually built and what the structure looks like from the inside. We're going to walk together through one specific lesson so you can see what it looks like in practice. And we're going to talk about how it connects to frameworks that you may be already using in your program. We're also going to be looking at how to use one specific lesson with your learners at different levels. And we'll end with a concrete first step. So hopefully it won't be a think about trying this, but an actual decision that you can make before you leave this virtual room. And just before we get into it, either with a show of hands or anything in the chat, has anyone used Google Applied Digital Skills with your learners before? Either do your digital raised hand or something in the chat.
I'm just gonna unmute. It's Kathy. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I've tried in realizing that it's a different population that I've been working with lately. I wanted to see how I can try to use this towards the level of students that I have in front of me now as a digital navigator and ESL teacher. So I used it with a CDP program back years ago when it first started, and the platform was designed much differently. But having to get back into it and see it, I needed a refresher. So thank you very much for the opportunity to have you guys run this. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Pleasure. And like you just said, that there have been significant changes in the Applied Digital Skills platform. Some good, some bad, some indifferent, but the structure of it has changed greatly. And that change took place last summer 2026. Or excuse me, 2025, excuse me. So it was a lot has changed. If you haven't looked at it, I would very much encourage you to do so. If you need to start kind of at the beginning, we have our recording from a couple weeks ago when we introduced it again. Today, like I said, we're going to focus more on the implementation piece, especially with the new changes. So before we get into applied digital skills specifically, I want to take a quick step back and remind us where we are in the bigger picture of digital literacy. Because this is our third session in our series, and it matters for how we think about who might be ready for applied digital skills and who may not be there yet. So you're looking at what we call the digital skills spectrum. And over the past few weeks, we've talked about DART and North Star. So as you may know, that DART is our foundational entry point. There's heavy scaffolding and language support. And it's meant to build confidence for learners who are brand new to digital environments. And then North Star sits in the middle. That is targeted towards skill building, accuracy, consistency, and confirming that the learner has those core tools and competence that they need. And then Google Applied Digital Skills lives at the application end of the spectrum. It's going to assume that a learner can navigate a device, that they can open a browser, and work with a Google tool with some degree of independence. So it's not where you start with a learner who's never touched a computer. That's going to be what DART is for. Applied digital skills is where you go when a learner is ready to use digital tools to do something real. So as we talk today about implementation, keep the spectrum in mind because not every learner in your class may be ready for applied digital skills yet, and that's okay. The question is not should you use applied digital skills, but which of your learners may be ready for it, and what does that look like in practice? And that's hopefully what we're going to answer today. So let's start with the basics. Google Applied Digital Skills is a free browser-based curriculum from Google. There's no app, there's no download, there's no account required just to browse the lessons. So learners can use real Google tools like Docs, Sheets, Slides, Drive, Gmail, and every lesson is built around a project that they will actually complete. Not counted, but there's probably about 100 or maybe over 100 lessons at different skill levels. Now, this is where I want to be brutally honest with you before we go further. Applied digital skills has changed over the past year or so. So some of the features that used to exist are no longer available. The platform is simpler than it once was, so maybe that's a bonus. But again, some of the features that they used to have are no longer there. And we're going to work with what it is right now. And I'm going to show you how to navigate it as it exists today. What has not changed is the core structure of the lessons themselves. And that structure is still genuinely very well suited to the learners that we serve. So here's why it still works. The lessons use video modeling, which means learners are following along visually rather than trying to decode a wall of text. And that's a big deal for the population that we work with. The videos are broken into short segments and go through those videos just one step at a time. So it's manageable even for beginners. And because learners can pause and rewatch, they're not dependent on you to demonstrate every step. And that frees you up to move around the room and support where it's needed. And the final product of every lesson is something real, like a resume or a budget or a presentation. And it's something that a learner can actually use outside of class. And for adult learners, that matters. So every applied digital skills lesson, regardless of the topic, follows the same structure. And once you know the pattern, you can look at any lesson in the library and know or feel more confident about how you might use it. And this starts with an authentic task, a real product that the learner is going to create. And that's going to be the anchor for everything else. Then the lesson delivers instruction through a set of video clips. Each one covers one step and shows the tool in action. And it ends at a natural pause point where learners can try it themselves. So below each video, there's written steps, which are also very useful for English language learners, or anyone who wants to go back and reference what they just watched. After a video segment, learners do something. They practice that step immediately and not later. So that's also an important piece. At the end, they have completed a document that they can submit. And that cycle, the watch, try, check, continue, that's a rhythm that the learner experiences throughout the entire lesson. So it keeps people moving without getting stuck. Hopefully reduces frustration of, I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. And the one thing that I want to flag for you guys as digital navigators, this structure also means that you don't need to be the one delivering every step because the videos are going to do that. So your job is going to shift to one that is of circulating, of troubleshooting and supporting. So it's really using your expertise in a very different way. Over here, just want to make sure. Oh, okay, perfect. Just wanted to quickly check our questions. Looks like nothing yet, but Jose, feel free to stop me if you notice anything in the chat. All right, moving on. Let's talk about some of the real stuff, the moments where learners get stuck, because they will. These are predictable, and having a plan for each one makes a big difference. The first one is accessing prior knowledge or prior experience. So, for example, I'm going to use the lesson that we referenced in our first session together on applied digital skills. We talked about the lesson on building a resume. So in this case, we're going to just continue on with that theme. If you haven't looked at that lesson yet, we can do so in just a second. But when a learner sits down to build a resume and the screen asks them to describe their work history, some of them may freeze. I think I probably would. This is especially true if there are learners with employment gaps or those whose work experience doesn't necessarily neatly fit into a standard category. So in this case, your fix might be giving them something to do on paper before they even touch a screen. So a simple brainstorm sheet or some sentence frames or a few guided questions. This can get the content out of their head first and then let them type it. Some other supports might be working with a template. So templates are helpful, but learners sometimes accidentally delete a section or override the formatting. So teaching undo on day one, like seriously, make it the very first thing, the Control Z or Command Z is one of the most valuable things that you can show a new learner or a new computer user. And it also helps to have a screenshot of what that template is supposed to look like. So learners have a reference when things go sideways. And I do think this is one of the things that applied digital skills does well, is that you can see and they can see what each step should look like when it's completed. In terms of file management, that's one that also people tend to underestimate. So as learners are finishing the lesson, then can't find the document. So building a routine of naming files and saving it to their drive explicitly is a really important step. So don't assume that that's going to happen on its own. Make it a part of how you close every session. For those who need ESL or language support, the vocabulary in this lesson, again, I'm referring to the lesson of how to build a resume. So they might see words like responsibilities, accomplishments, job title, experience. Those are not always simple, so a quick vocabulary warm up before the lesson starts can go a long way. And then another thing that Google Applied Digital Skills does really well is extension activities. So for learners who move through a core lesson quickly, have the next step ready. So for example, after building a resume, they can write a cover letter or a second version of the resume or formatting the resume. So have a plan for those movers who are moving quickly. So with that being said, just in case, and it's been a while since we all looked at it last time, I'm going to pull up this lesson that I keep referring to so we can just take a quick pause and put our eyes on it. And over here, I'm on the Google Applied Digital Skills page. And to search by topic, I'm going to quickly put in resume just so we can narrow it down. All right. So this was the lesson that we had looked at last time we were together. And again, I'm using it as my anchor lesson because it's one that everyone could use. And just to take another quick look at it and to kind of orient ourselves around this page. The goal of this lesson is to design, write, and format a professional looking resume that stands out. I think I need to hold on, switch my share to this page. Oh, good, I was on it. Perfect. All right. As we go through or go down the page, each of these lessons, these are all hyperlinks. And I'm going to just click on the first one. And again, last time we were together, we walked through what these videos.
No audio. MaryKate.
Yep, that's okay. I wasn't going to play the whole thing again anyways, but we do have a few things to point out is that the video not only is here, if you do need closed captioning, you can do that. You can click on that and you have those options to close caption it in English, but the transcript is also down below. So if anyone does need the transcript, everything is right here with just a click away. Below, you'll see, again, just a really quick snapshot of the basic instructions that are going to be in each video, as well as some additional links for more information. When they are ready to move on to the next activity or the next step in this video series, it's as simple as clicking on this next arrow down here, and we get to the next video in the series. For now, I'm going to back out just a bit because I want to then, again, orient us to the teaching materials. So I'm going to come down here and show you this as well. So as far as our teaching materials, we have a few pieces. The most powerful one is going to be here in the lesson plan. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that again, which is where we're going to see a lot of great information, including not only what they're going to be doing in this lesson, but additional resources. We're going to see some of the terms that they have brought up that you might want to introduce to your learners ahead of time. Some of the skills that they're going to need, and also some of the lesson videos. So these were the videos that were linked on the page that we were on prior. You can see the goal of those. Also over here, you have the link right to the video. So that's nice that you don't have to kind of toggle back and forth. And one of my favorite things that they have is that you can see what, or show your learners what they are going to be doing in that step. So this is where you can say, you know, after this video, this is where you should be. And in this case, kind of bury the lead here, is really just opening this document and naming it. All right, and that's as far as we got. And again, these would be the rest of the videos that would be in that lesson, and they're hyperlinked again here in the teacher resources. We mentioned extension activities before, and those would be right here. So if you do want to go beyond or have some learners, those fast finishers, go beyond what was in the video series, we do have some of the extension activities already picked out right here in this teaching document, as well as some tips for what to do before during, and after. One of the biggest changes that happened in the way these lessons are now presented without a learning management system that they used to have is the assessment. And what Google has really changed is that the product is now the assessment. There is a quiz. If you would like to use that with your learners, you can, but the assessment is not going to be the quiz. The focus is really having the product that they are creating be the assessment, that project be this assessment. All right. And again, you can see some exemplar projects, in this case, the resume. And again, another link that you could show your learners at the beginning. The one other thing in here, like I said, the quiz doesn't really work in the same way that it used to. There used to be a learning management system. You could track progress and answers on quizzes that may be a little bit more similar to North Star. That has changed. And if you'd like a printed version of the quiz, that exists now, but that's really all of it. The other big change that has happened while I'm thinking of it is that you can no longer download all of the videos. That used to be an option that you could do. And that even really still exists right here at the bottom. Is you get there and then this happens. So they took that functionality away, but didn't take the button away. So that's a little confusing to those of us who are maybe trying to navigate the site for our learners, but do know that that is normal for everybody. And again, just one other thing to orient us is very similar to North Star. They do have a certificate, but this one is just a blank to Google Doc. So you would need to modify this in some way. They're not going to automatically get anything at the completion of this video series. And the goal is that the product at the end is their assessment or what they're going to be turning back in to you. So any questions so far? Again, I know we had looked at this before. I didn't want to spend too much time on talking about anything we had done before, but any questions on either this lesson or getting ourselves oriented around a Google Applied Digital Skills?
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Would you recommend if we would use it in ESL classroom, what level would be the better fit for this? Because I know beginners wouldn't be, but would it be something you would want to start touching upon in intermediate, or would it be more of an advanced thing?
What we recommend is that it's going to be more for an intermediate or advanced. You would need to do a lot of supplementing with this lesson for ESL learners. Again, it's not going to be impossible to do, but there's no great support here anymore. There used to be some functionality, which is why I'm kind of hesitating on my my real thoughts on that. There used to be an option to watch these in Spanish, and I don't think that functionality exists across all the lessons anymore or at all. At least I haven't seen it anymore.
Okay, and my second question is because I push into classrooms when I do North Star. So if I was going to do this with the classes, now this isn't something I would probably want to do in the math class, right? But would I do it, would it be like something to do maybe when I'm in the English class or in the business class?
Well, I think either one of those. There's a lot of different options here that might be ones that you could use in a math class. So for example, there's ones on creating a budget, and there might be some ties to math in that way. The topic, there's not a really great way to start. You used to be able to narrow it down by subject area. But I think that you definitely could find a tie to any subject area. So for example, this one, just calculating percentages in Google Sheets. So if you are talking about probability, percentages, etc., that it could be
Oh, I
something.
didn't realize it had so many links. These would be even things that we could, let's say I would take those, I could forward them specifically like to the math teacher. Hey, can you work on this section of it? Or is it like North Star where I have to push in, like being the one that does the digital navigating?
It's a
I'm sorry,
great.
I'm trying to wrap my mind on how to organize it. So when I'm really like doing my plate next semester and separating, okay, when I go to beginners, I'm doing more of the um, Dart, but when I'm intermediate, I'm doing more North Star. So
I
just
it would really depend on the learners that you're with, and I don't mean to be like kind of vague on that because so for example, when they are coming over here and starting this video series, and if they're watching this video, even if you had put it up on the screen and everyone is watching it together, and then they have to mimic the steps that you're showing here, they're still going to be required to open a new tab or a new page. Can they get into their Google account? Because if they're creating something in Sheets, they need to be able to access their Google, need to have a Google login or know where to even find it in the first place. So it really kind of depends on that amount of independence, is that this will walk them through it, but if they don't know the very beginning mechanics of how to open a new tab or what it looks like to have two different tabs, maybe on a screen and going back and forth, that's where I think some of the challenges may be, not necessarily just the content itself. Does that make sense?
no, it does. I'm sorry. I was just like, it's a slow process. I'm like, wait, okay, yeah. Now I'm just, as you're talking, just trying to like, okay, this is how I would do it, or yes. But thank you so much for explaining it and showing, because I looked at it, but I didn't really, I guess, see this math part even. So this is phenomenal. I have to navigate and play with it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it
I,
really. Go ahead, Jose. I'm sorry.
no, no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was going to say the lessons themselves, especially if your organization, if your school is using the Google Suite or Google for Education, it really is. It's a very powerful set of lessons because it is going to give them very specific actionable items in each lesson to produce something real. So if they have to create a budget for work or even at home or whatever it may be, this is going to walk them through how to get started and how to do it. And they're going to have a product at the end that really means something to them and potentially not necessarily uh, I don't know, just a series of numbers that it doesn't mean anything or just kind of going through a series of steps. So that's the beautiful part of the Google Applied Digital Skills curriculum is that it is putting those digital skills in action in their everyday lives. And for adult learners, that is a really powerful thing. Um, the drawback is the platform itself was made much more simple, can be good or it could be a challenge. Um, so it's just kind of trying to figure out how to navigate through that with the group of learners that you have. Go ahead, Jose.
Um, I wanted to say that like one of the things that is not there in under the transcript, usually you would be able to click through whatever the wording was, and it'll take you to that particular portion of the video. Um,
Yeah.
and then it'll start playing from there. They like that Spanish piece of it usually was there that you could just translate the whole thing in Spanish. I haven't seen that, but if you're looking like you need to support a little bit more, you have the transcript there of what happens in that video. So like sometimes you're looking to have like those steps in a one page for them to, instead of watching the video again, they know what they need to do. Then you could pull it out from the transcript itself and then um or even translate it to a different language if that's the case. Then you're still using the same tool. But like Mary-Kate said, there's a couple of things that they're not there anymore. That's how it was before.
Great questions. Anything else at this point that I can answer?
There's nothing in the chat, by the way. I mean, other than what you saw already.
All right. So like I said, using that anchor lesson, the create a resume lesson, we're going to just continue to build on that. So let me go back here and go. So taking a look at what we saw before on the left side, this is what a lesson looks like when you open it. You're going to see that those list of segments, and this is actually the current interface for applied digital skills that as we saw it. The lesson is organized as almost like a unit with individual components like the introduction, the brainstorming, your work history, the brainstorming skills and awards, writing the first draft, and completing the resume, editing and formatting. And then, of course, there's a wrap up and that option to take a quiz or have extensions at the bottom. So one thing that you could do, you could start together to watch the intro video as a group. Maybe talk for a minute about what a resume is and why it matters. Then you could release learners to work through the segments at their own pace. Or potentially you might have one learner be on segment 3 and then one learner is still on segment 1. And that's fine. That is the design that each person is going to be able to work at their own pace while you are circulating and checking in and troubleshooting and conferencing with individuals while the video is doing the modeling itself. What the descriptions on the right, that's what I had typed in. That's what each segment is actually doing. So for example, opening docs and giving a title and generating ideas for work history, identifying skills and accomplishments. So in this case, there were 7 segments and the whole lesson would typically run about 45 to 75 minutes, depending on your learners. All right, and here's something that I find really reassuring for the teachers who are new to applied digital skills is that unlike what we had before, you do not need a dashboard. You don't need any special account or any special reporting tool. The resume itself, the product itself is the assessment. So when you look at a finished resume, you are looking at exactly what you need to see. That's it. The learner did make real content and real choices. And you are going to take a look at it to decide, does this actually reflect their actual experience? Did they apply the formatting tools correctly? Did they demonstrate what they can use in the digital tool? Did they open docs, use a template, save the file? Is the document clean and readable? That is your evidence. As for how to collect it, there's a number of different options. If you're using Google Classrooms, learners can share it directly through an assessment. If you have maybe a shared class folder in Drive, they could drop the file in. If you have no LMS at all, they could print it. So the product exists and is portable. And that really matters, especially for maybe workforce programs where you need documentation. A completed resume is something that you could point to. One of the questions I think that we had before is maybe why use this or how do we justify using this? And Why would we need to maybe explain why we spent class time on this? And hopefully this slide is the answer to that. And that's applied digital skills doesn't exist in isolation from the frameworks that your program is already using. So for example, bridges, we mentioned that before. The resume lesson in particular directly addresses workforce readiness, document creation, online communication. And those are not loose connections. They are explicit alignments, especially in this case. If you're already using North Star, learners in this lesson are practicing naming and saving documents. They're editing and formatting Google Docs. They are actually using templates and building digital identity awareness. And most of those are also named as North Star competencies. So again, it's a great way to build on to what they might be already using in North Star. If you're using ISTE, maybe those that are empowering learning, digital communication, producing and publishing with digital tools. And this fits particularly well if you're working with younger adults, maybe in a dual enrollment context, or for career pathways or workforce development and training. The lesson we just looked at, the resume structure, the transferable skills of language and professional communication and document presentation. For potentially ESL learners, the vocabulary development, sentence level writing, and peer review conversation. Those are also ways that you might align with what you're already doing. And at the bottom, in the orange part at the bottom here, there's 5 quick signs that will tell you a lesson is worth using. So for example, if it is producing something real, if the skills travel outside the classroom, if it's connecting to something you're already teaching, if the language load is manageable for your learners, and if it actually builds digital resilience, meaning that learners are problem solving with real tools and not just memorizing a series of clicks, then it might be a lesson worth using in your classroom. All right. So when we think about application here, it helps to think back to North Star, where we were last week. In North Star, learners are often practicing discrete skills or demonstrating accuracy within a structured activity. With Google Applied Digital Skills, those same skills show up within a much larger task. So learners aren't just practicing formatting or inserting text. They're using those skills to complete something meaningful, like a resume or a budget or a presentation. And in this context, success isn't a score or a completed module. Success is a product that they can actually use outside of the classroom. And it's important to say this clearly, that applied doesn't necessarily mean advanced. It simply means skills that are being used in context and with purpose. All right. So let's talk about how you might want to set up your room or your class. And that matters a lot when you're using applied digital skills. So here are maybe 4 structures that may work for you. And I want you to think about what one might fit best in your context. So for example, you could use this as a whole group introduction plus some independent work. And that might be the easiest starting point for what I would recommend the first time. And this is very similar to what we had just discussed a few minutes ago, where you might start together and establish expectations, watch the first segment as a group, and then release learners to move at their own pace while you circulate. Again, some might move farther along than others, and that's fine. You could also potentially use this as stations or a station rotation, where It could be more complex, but it also gives you a little bit more control potentially, where one group is watching the applied digital skills segments, one's working independently, one group might be meeting with you, or one might be doing a vocabulary or brainstorming activity. And you can rotate on a timer. And this might work well when you have either limited devices or a wide range of levels. You could also potentially use this as a peer review station, which is potentially underused, but also could be really valuable. So for example, once learners have a draft, you could pair them up and give them 2 simple questions about reviewing each other's work. And that creates both speaking and listening practice, but also can build confidence. And last but not least, maybe this could work as an instructor conferencing model where you would have learners with maybe higher needs, or when you're doing something individualized, the video is doing the instruction while you are doing brief one-on-ones. So maybe 5 minutes of support for vocabulary or troubleshooting tech, or just even coaching the content a bit more. So the point of all the 4 of these is that you're not standing in the room and you're not reteaching every step. The videos are doing that. You are using your time where you have the most impact. So both in the last time we met about applied digital skills and then today, we used our resume lesson as the starting point. But that's, again, one of 100 different lessons in the library. So from here, you really need to choose what would work best for you and your learners and how to decide what would come next. So before you do that, I want you to think about the lesson or run any of the lessons that you're considering through some of these 5 questions. Does it produce a real artifact? Do the skills transfer outside of the classroom? Does it connect to a unit or a pathway or an instructional goal that you already have? Does the language load work for your learners? And can they model it can they access it without modeling or some support? And does it build digital resilience? Meaning, are the learners actually navigating a real tool and solving real problems, and not just following a script or a set of steps? On the right are 5 starting points, or starting lessons beyond the resume. So again, I would strongly encourage you to go to Google Applied Digital Skills and take a few minutes just to scroll through all of their options, because there's going to be something in there that would maybe fit both best with you. But if not, here are some starting points that you might want to look at. Of course, the first one is the creating a resume. That's the one that we've been talking about. But it also could be managing your time with Google Sheets. Great one for time management and scheduling goals. Introduce yourself in Google Slides is a great one for newer learners, and it builds presentation skills. Maybe one that you could even use at the beginning of the year, where they can introduce themselves to their class. Creating a budget in Google Sheets is a natural fit if you're doing, math or financial literacy programming, or for any adult out there, creating a budget is always important. Something that I suppose that we all could take something away from. And the last one, the Google Workplace Gmail. So just using regular Gmail or email covers professional email, which every learner needs. And again, I would encourage you to go to the full library at the Applied Digital Skills site. Again, you don't need an account. I know many of us do have Google accounts at this point, but just to look around, no account is required, and you're free to browse. This is a good stopping point for a second for any additional questions.
I'm going through, I'm just looking at the topics as you're doing this, and I just put in like create a resume or managing your time. I put in manage time for that one, and it came down, it was really far down on the list. And then I put introduce yourself in Google Slides exactly, and it doesn't even come up on the first page. So do you have any suggestions for that?
I unfortunately do not.
Okay, all right.
There used to be, again, that's one of the small gripes that I have. And if you ask Jose, he'll tell you that I could get my soapbox with my gripes about those changes that they made. Again, I was so ingrained in the previous version of Google Applied Digital Skills that I had really liked before. And that definitely had a much more robust search system where you could even search by level, and there was an adult education search by too, and no longer exists. So unfortunately, I don't have a great suggestion other than trying to use a keyword and a little bit of patience.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course. All right. And again, the other thing too that I need to say is that, and I don't have a lot of great evidence for this, but things are changing. Still, when we had aligned all of our resources in the digital skills curriculum that we're recommending, and again, this was kind of the natural fit of extension activities beyond that of North Star, then there were a lot more lessons in the library that used to exist that we no longer see here. And we did have I think we had almost mapped every single one that they used to have, and then noticed that there was a significant number of them that no longer exist. That being said, I don't know if they're coming or going, or if anything is ever up, coming down off of the Google Applied Digital Skills lessons or being revamped. That's I have no evidence to say that they are doing or not doing that, or maybe bringing more in. They don't mention that anymore. That's something that they used to say, oh, we have new lessons here. Check out our new lessons. I'm not really seeing that anymore. But again, that doesn't mean things aren't changing every day. All right. So we've covered a lot of ground. So from here, what I would ask of you to do is to use the next few minutes of your day to then turn this into an actual plan. So again, I'll put up this link right here into our chat, which is over here, just in case if you're not already on that. Perfect. And this is all of the lessons that you can browse through. And I would encourage you to use the next few minutes to turn this into an actual plan. And think about these three pieces of which applied digital skills could you try first? So considering maybe a unit that you're working on currently, your learner's goals, or what frameworks or standards that you might need to address. That would be the first thing to ask yourself. The second, which would be your learners and which entry point you feel like they would be most comfortable with. So for example, who would need beginner scaffolding, who's ready to go further, how you might teach the vocabulary, or do they still need Google Docs basics? That's an important piece to consider. And last but not least, which classroom structure fits your context? So previously we talked about different ways that you might be able to implement it. Which one do you think would be the most natural fit for your learners? Would it be the whole group launch? Could you do a station rotation? Would it work maybe with more of that conferencing model? And do you have the the device access and the room setup that would be maybe necessary for any one of those structures. Catherine, I see your question. I can do this from the angle of how I support the teachers. Is that okay? Yeah, can you actually build on that a little bit? I just want to fully
Yeah,
understand.
I'm thinking about the population I work with, and the resources are built tremendously within these projects. I just don't think they have the language at this point, and it doesn't really align. But I do support a lot. I do support the classroom teachers within their curriculum. And many of them talk about, like, I'm looking at the Create a Community My Map, and one of the civics units that I've worked with a teacher, Melissa, talks about she sends her students out into the community to find opportunities to use language and socialize. So I'm thinking that this would be a great way to support her in the classroom with where did the students go, what did they find, and building it so they could share it with the other classmates or post it, so then it becomes a resource that's built within. But it's not work I'm doing. That was my only question. I'm just trying to, like, think on the fly of how I could help my teachers. So
To be very honest with you, and I think this is a really good idea too, if you're using this to support teachers, and this one lesson, was it this lesson or was it another one? But I'd be very honest that I think it was last year, Jose had asked me to do something similar with this lesson and to create a mind map or how someone did it. I took this myself because it walked
yeah,
me through the steps of how to do that. So I'm like, instead of recreating this or just figuring it out on my own, I'm going to watch the videos. I
yeah.
went through it.
So is it where we were trying to create a resource of the free Wi-Fi hotspots in the area?
Yeah, sure.
Is that it? Yep. So I did dabble with it a little bit. I didn't go through the whole lesson, but that was something, thanks, Jose, that I had to spend time working on because it was something I brought back to Shoreline. So
Absolutely. So yeah, that's a great point too. If they're, oh, that would be interesting. What should we do with all this information? Well, creating a mind map, but teacher's like, I'm not even sure how to get started. Well, there's steps right here.
exactly.
No
Yeah.
need to reinvent the wheel.
There's a few in here, like coding. Like, who knows how to code? I'm too old for coding, but I want to learn it. But I'm like, oh, it'll be great to be able to take a look at this and see if I could follow it.
Okay, sure. I mean, even creating a crossword puzzle. There's so many different things in here. So, I think that with an ounce of creativity and some patience and a good dash of digital resilience, that there might be in here something in here, even if it's not you're drawing a direct line to your learners. Like I said, this is all about application. Is that what can you take the skills that you already have, that your learners already have, that your teachers already have, and build on them from here. Or, if nothing else, it's a really good repository of lessons that maybe just gives you an idea of a project that you might want to do down the way in a different way. So it's no matter what, taking a few minutes into exploring it and finding a way that it works best for you in any context is always great. And maybe something you even learn along. Maybe you wanted to take it like I did. It's like, how do I do these maps? Okay. Oh, well, this walked me right through it in a few minutes, and boom, I was done. Um, Thank you, Catherine. That was great. I know we only have just a couple minutes left. Any other thoughts or potential challenges or questions? All right. Well, with that being said, just a reminder, and again, a big thank you. We are here to help. So if you need any additional support, anything related to anything, but digital equity, literacy, implementation, or any other support, please come see us, visit our website. You're also always free to create a tech implementation and support session. We have our calendar linked on Calendly, and that just means that you get to claim a chunk of our day and come talk about whatever is giving you a hard time with your learners and how we can best support you. So please use us anytime or contact us with any additional questions that you have.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon or almost evening now. I appreciate you guys for coming today.